Can I move that one out of there? Yep.
Okay, it's 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. We are recording it, so we can share it with anybody who can't make it or comes on late. And if you need to drop off, no problem. You can always review this piece later. I am Jason Nickleby. I'm the coordinator of officials with the league, and I also have the responsibility for wrestling, taking over for Eric, who took over for Craig. Been an exciting season so far, and hopefully we can keep it going right into section tournaments, and appreciate all of you taking some time to be with us today to go through some of this section information, so we're all on the same page. And I do have some individuals on the meeting today that are really helpful resources as you run your section tournaments, several of which most of which who've been around and have managed these tournaments for quite a long time, and are good resources for you. So Byron Olson, who has been a tournament director for us at the state tournament level, he said he was going to retire when Craig retired, but we said that's not allowed. You can't both retire at the same time. So we got Byron to commit for 1 more year to assist us in that transition. And then Brad Skogerbo and Mark Weasley, who've helped us as managers at our state tournament, have also managed section tournaments for a number of years. They are great resources, and their contact information is listed also. And then obviously the person who's running this whole show, Susie Hollenbeck, is on here as well. And as you all know, a great go-to person for any of the needs and concerns that you may have leading up to your tournaments. And then we do have Rick Rude on here, our state coordinator of officials and also our state supervisor. He'll be able to speak to some rules related pieces, weigh-ins, skin checks, and so forth. And then also John Peterson will be speaking to track wrestling and items that we would need from you and or your coaches as we get into section tournament time. At this point in time, right before I turn it over to Laura, who's going to discuss technology in our site, if you do have any questions as we go through the meeting, throw those in the chat, and then we can address those as we go. And if it's something that we think the whole group needs to hear, we can certainly address those either as we go or at the end of the meeting today. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura Mackentoon, who is our assistant director in charge of technology and our website, and she's going to discuss some website access and information for all of you.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Good afternoon, everyone. A few notes, and these again are in the agenda that Susie shared with you. You should at this point have worked with your region secretary to make sure that you have been assigned to the section tournaments that you're going to run. When you're assigned to that tournament, you then have a login to the website. Those of you who are ADs, it's another dashboard for you from the same login. Those of you who are not ADs, you will have a login just to your section wrestling pieces. If you do not yet have that access, please work with your region secretary, or please email us at info@mshsl.org, and we'll get you connected so that you have access to the website pieces for your section wrestling tournaments. Once you have that access, a couple of things these are under 2B. Next Tuesday at January 18th at noon, we're going to do a section personnel website training. And I'll pop that Zoom link into the chat here when I'm done talking. Your region secretary has that information also and can share that with you. We'll record that session, so that will be available too. At that session, we're going to teach you and show you how to do 2 things. One of those is making sure that the dates and locations for your section tournaments are entered and visible on the website. And the second one is we'll teach you how to add section resources and make those available to your participating teams. Section resources are things like schedules, PDFs of information, things that in the past you may have emailed out or in the really olden days put in an envelope and mailed to those teams. Those you can now put on those coach and AD's dashboards. Again, so everything for them is in one place and they're not tracking through and chasing around emails trying to figure out where they are. So those two pieces, again, work with your region secretary. In some regions, that those dates and locations, your region secretary may have already entered those. In some, that might be something they expect you to do. And again, next Tuesday, January 18th at noon, we'll do about a half an hour training on how to do those two pieces. And then the third piece is brackets, and this is going to be talked about more as we go through the meeting today. But as tournament personnel, it's also on your to-do list to update brackets. And those look different for individual and team. And again, we'll talk more about those and you'll get more information about brackets. Those are really the three website things you should be thinking about. Number one is having your dates and locations on and visible, using that section resource feature to communicate and share resources about your tournament with the folks participating, and then brackets. So I'm going to pop that Zoom link for next Tuesday into the chat so you can grab that. And then if you have any questions for me, please feel free to drop them in the chat and I will assist as we move through the meeting. Jason, I'll turn it back to you to talk about management and chain of command.
All right, thank you, Laura. We have several other things on the agenda, most of which many of you have seen or have addressed before with event management keys and then the section manager's guide. Just a reminder on the rules and policies document, make sure you review that. That is on our website and on the wrestling activity page. You can find that there. And then for ADs, it should be on your dashboard also. So we'll talk to some of those things, but at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Queasley, who is going to discuss frequently asked questions and most of the topics that are covered in the event management keys document as well. So Mark, do you want us to share that document or do you want to share it on your end?
If Susie, she's right on top of it. They're awesome. Hello, everyone. I recognize many of you from past tournaments running these section events. And as Jason said, we're here as your resource, whether it's a phone call or an email. We want to make sure we get these responses back to you as quick as we can. The first item that Susie put up here is the FAQ. A few years ago, we started compiling this question, answer, frequently asked questions about whether it's coaches, what they can and cannot do or need to have on the clipboard, weigh-ins, specifically after January 15th, consecutive day weigh-ins, and then we can go down to particulars about multi-date weigh-ins for those wrestlers. We will put a link in here for track wrestling information. As soon as John and Tony get that information ready for us, that will be posted there. And it's just, again, helpful hints for those computer operators that you're going to have at your site helping you with those. And again, the difference between a one-day weigh-in and a two-day weigh-in for team and individual competition, protocols for those weigh-ins, and scales, what you can and cannot do with an individual wrestler versus a team wrestler in a tournament. And most of those are still weigh-in questions, Susie. There are some particular questions about 106, 113, and 285. It's important that your weigh-in crew understands those 2-pound allowances for those weight classes after January 1. and then a additional pound for day 2. And so some things float, some things will not. So it's important that you have your rule book available for those weigh-in procedures prior to that. Again, suitable undergarments for those wrestlers when they're in the weigh-in area. We will talk about some eligibility. What if a wrestler is not eligible in round 1 because of a chemical behavior violation, sportsmanship, ejection? Will they be eligible for round 2 or subsequent rounds in your section tournament? We spell that out here as well. And if they have to weigh in or if they don't have to weigh in for that. Forfeits, from time to time, we have some concerns with forfeits where your forfeits in a section team tournament carry over from the first duel through the conclusion of the section championship. So it's important that you're tracking those round by round as to who can have a forfeit at a given weight. It's either that weight class or one weight class above for those wrestlers. You can have 21 wrestlers on your section roster. Again, you can substitute with a medical release, or if you have someone that doesn't pass skin checks and you do your skin checks, medical checks prior to the start of your first round of your tournament, you can sub a different wrestler into that tournament rotation. And again, if you sub a wrestler in that's been injured and they come back into the tournament, they got to go right back into the same slot. They have to replace the same person, I should say, on that 21 person roster. And then when you conclude the section tournament and your team qualifies for the state tournament, you can have a completely 21 different wrestlers for your state tournament roster. But again, from the first pigtail round through the conclusion of the section championship, you're locked into your 21 wrestlers as soon as you present them to the scale of that first round. We talk about cancellations and reschedules. Please make sure your region committee has a process in place for those schedules, cancellations, and what you're going to do and how you're going to reschedule those events. And then also medical procedures are spelled out there as well with some different scenarios. Again, if we come up with different items that we feel we should add to these during the tournament, we can do that. The bench area, again, your bench area should be a restricted area of your 21 wrestlers and 3 coaches. Videotaping, you should be only videotaping your own team. Seeding, there are 3 ways that you can seed a team tournament under the bylaws of the high school league. Coaches cannot choose to do their own style of seeding. They must follow one of the 3 criteria. So please make sure that you preset those standards for those seeding of the team tournament. Counting matches, we have that in there as well for a regular season. 16 events for varsity, junior varsity, and B squad, and no more than 45 matches. And then we also have some information about deaf wrestlers as well. So again, if we feel there's something there that we're getting a lot of questions on, we will add it to the FAQ under those specific areas. But we're going to share that link with you, and then if you want to put it on your desktop, you're welcome to do that, or turn it over to your site manager for those as they prepare for those events. Any questions about the FAQ, first of all?
Mark, I have one question.
Yeah.
Every year it comes up that some sections work through 3rd place matches and championship matches with one official, not head and assist. We'd like that to be consistent through all sections, where we have a head and assistant on the 3rd place matches and a head and assistant on the championship matches.
Of the individual tournament and the team. Yeah, it's the individual tournament you're referring to. Yep.
I would refer to both in that case, please.
Well, we wouldn't have a 3rd place match in the team tournament. So yeah,
It wouldn't
we
apply,
should
so
have
we
a
would-
head and assist on a championship match in a dual format too, is the preference, is what you're saying.
Correct.
All right, okay. Thanks for that clarification. Any others in the chat, Susie, that we need to answer right away? Okay.
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay. Item number 3, management and chain of command. It's important that you work with your region secretary so that you have your tournament manager, your event manager in the loop on a rules committee. You also should have a designated official. You're not expected to know everything about the sport of wrestling. And so please make sure you assign an official to your rules committee and your tournament procedure group. If you have questions about that, you can certainly reach out to Rick or Ron Ackerman or any one of those assigners who can help you with identifying a quality person that you can go to with those tough questions that are deep in that rule book. And then please keep Jason Nickleby in the loop on any of those decisions. Section tournament managers, again, you need to assign site managers and sites for all of your levels. It is advisable that before you get into any seating process that you check with all of the teams in your section to make sure that they are going to have a team entered into the section team tournament. Sometimes we have schools that maybe only have 6, 7, 8 varsity wrestlers, and they might opt out of the team tournament, and you would hate to seed that if they were not planning on being in that tournament. So please cross-check with your all your member schools in your competitive section for that team tournament. Again, section managers need to know the key rules and the management of your tournament. Establish communication and chain of command. I've talked somewhat about that. Make sure that your communication, you have section managers who communicate well, not only with you as the tournament manager, but also are able to relay things quickly and efficiently to those coaches during those either team or individual tournaments. And then we also like to know the contact information of those tournament managers, and Susie collects that information as well. Reporting of the results. Again, we do that through track wrestling and then also the high school league website for recording those results. If we have a disqualification, again, we need to make sure that we document those disqualifications. And then also if we have a wrestler that or a team that forfeits a weight class in the section championship, that will carry over with them through the conclusion of the state tournament. So we need to make sure that we're recording all those forfeitures as well. Focus again on consistency. Number 5, their weight certification. After January 15th, all wrestlers will have to have 50% of their weight weigh-ins at a specific weight in order to qualify for the postseason. From time to time, you will have wrestlers who will not be able to weigh in from January 15th through the end of the year. And there's an appeal process. It's in the policies and procedures. And that information will go to Susie, and Susie will distribute that to her group at the league office, and they will get a determination to you as well as if that wrestler can qualify for postseason or not based on the information you have supplied. Official coaches, remember that we need to make sure that you can only have 3 coaches on your bench area during your section tournament. Again, you need to follow the state law with the concussion management, and they also need to have all their items done on the dashboard. It's difficult for Susie to have some of those conversations at registration and check-in when you bring coaches to the state tournament who are not on your dashboard. And we don't want to be adding coaches in the lobby of the Excel Center to your roster. So please make sure you get those people taken care of now and not at the end of the season. Your certified tournament lineup, your team tournament. When you present your team, that first round of that wrestling tournament, that is your official roster that you're presenting. So just make sure that your coaches know that when they step to the scale that first round, that is their 21-person roster, maximum of 21 wrestlers. I talked about the eligibility of wrestlers. There are some items in there as well with that. Medical protocols, again, you will have a tournament medical staff who should be doing your med checks for you. Make sure they're comfortable with identifying all of the skin things that will come up. And again, your medical staff is your final decision. It's not an official or a coach. It's actually the medical staff that will make those determinations. And again, please look for qualified people that understand the sport of wrestling, that can make a good decision on behalf of those student athletes before we possibly are eliminating them from the tournament. I talked about inclement weather a little bit. Distribution of state tournament materials, those will be handed out or sent to you as tournament managers prior to your tournament. And please make sure you not only get them their trophy, their medals, but also their tournament information for those state qualifiers. And section tournament seating. John, I think I'm going to turn that part over to you here next.
Okay, hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm the one that gets yelled at if anything goes wrong. So my name is Mark Queasley, and you can read, no, just kidding. Just a couple of things. And Mark, do you just want me to talk about seating, or should I talk about all the track wrestling stuff at once?
Let's do it all at once, John. And then that way, if there's questions specific to that, let's handle them right here.
Sounds good. Okay, so this is just like a high level overview of the track wrestling system and what you'll be using it for both the team and individual tournaments. More details will be following in the next couple of days. First of all, please send me the name of the person who's going to be operating your head table, the name, phone, and email of that person, so that I can get in contact with that person whenever need be. That's very important. So please send them my email, I believe is on here somewhere. If it's not, my email is john.howard.peterson@gmail.com. Some resources. There's going to be a section manager cheat sheet coming out in the next day or two from Susie that will have just some of this general information. It's also going to have instructions, more detailed instructions for how to run the team tournament, detailed instructions for how to run the individual tournament. And then in there also will be a video on how to seed the individual tournament. Now, this is something we have trouble with each year with a few sections where they don't quite follow the steps that they should be following. And seeding tends to be a little bit more confusing for them than it needs to be. So in this video are very specific instructions, and please make sure that your computer operators follow them to the letter and you won't have any issues. One clarification I wanted to point out, I think Mark said that weigh-ins after January 15th must be recorded. Actually, it starts on January 15th. So this coming Saturday is the first day that teams must record their weigh-ins. So make sure that that's clear. Coaches should also be entering not only their weigh-ins, but results of each of their varsity matches, not just the team score, but the individual matches. They enter them in the track wrestling system. We've been doing this for many years now, so they know what to do. But the reason that's important is because when we get to the individual seeding portion of the individual tournament, those results are automatically pulled in by the track wrestling system and used in the pre-seeding process. So again, it's very important that your coaches enter those results. As far as resources, Tony and I are available, any day before your tournament starts. Please contact track wrestling support on the day of the tournament, because we're going to have several other tournaments that we're going to be watching as well. Like I said, an email will go out with more details on the team and individual tournaments once track wrestling has them set up. I'm guessing that will be the next couple of days. For the team tournament, weight certifications, Tony and I will be sending a PDF to each section manager that lists each wrestler on the 21-man roster and what weight they are certified to wrestle at. Watch for those PDFs. Secondly, team tournaments are much easier to run, even if you're using multiple sites like high seeds and that kind of stuff. But obviously, Tony and I can act as resources for those. And lastly, Tony and I will set up your team tournament in track wrestling as far as putting teams on the brackets, that kind of thing. So really all you're going to have to do, or your computer operator, is enter results on the day of or score the matches. For the individual side, you can run an individual tournament either with or without computers sitting at the mats. That's completely up to you. If you've never run one electronically before, the section tournament's not a real good place to try to learn how that works. So there will be detailed directions on either method. So please watch for those. One last thing about seeding the individual tournament. There is a step that you have to follow, or your computer operator has to follow, where you have to tell the system to go pull the results from the season. Do not do this early. Do this like 30 minutes before the seed meeting. And the reason I say that is because you're going to have substitutions and changes. And if you try to pull results too early, it's not going to pull results for all the kids that are in the tournament. So again, please do these prep steps about 30 minutes before the seed meeting, and no earlier than that. One last thing I'm going to highlight: the track system does what we call pre-seeding, and we're calling it pre-seeding for a reason. After the seeds have been, pre-seeds have been done by the track system, then you should have a coaches meeting for the individual and have the coaches review those seeds and see if there are any glaring errors. If the coaches decide that, hey, wait a minute, this kid, the data is not correct, we should move him to number 2, so on and so forth, you should do that. So you're perfectly free to adjust those seeds if you feel that it's justified. Okay? Any questions?
John, those PDFs for the 21-person roster, it's important that as tournament managers, you get that information to your wrestling coaches early, so that when that data is pulled, John and Tony are pulling accurate information on those 21 wrestlers. For the last couple of years, we've had major hiccups where we've had some messes, and they've spent countless hours cleaning up rosters that if they would have just followed the document from John and Tony, it would be very helpful. But John, when would we possibly be expecting those 21-person rosters? That by Wednesday of that week?
Yeah, I would think so. I guess it depends on each section as to when their deadlines are for getting their rosters in. But obviously, if there are errors, then Tony and I need to know about that. Secondly, you are allowed, in fact, expected to share those documents with the coaches in your section. They're not secret. You should share them with them. We've had some issues with that in the past as well.
Susie, any questions there that John
Sorry,
needs to?
sorry, Bob was bending my ear for a second there.
Oh, it's not hockey season.
I know. No, nothing in the chat right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yeah, your next document there, it says 2022 wrestling tournament key management. Just keep those phone numbers and email addresses available for you. And again, we can't express enough. Make sure you pick your site management team as quickly as possible, your rules committee, and make sure that you're comfortable with the people that you have in place. And if that means scheduling a couple of meetings with them prior to the tournament, it's well worth it to make sure you're prepared before you go into a seating or the like. The last couple of documents, as always, we have a transfer of care. If a member school wants to take care of their own athletes, they must make sure that they fill out that transfer of care or we don't want to be doing that at your section tournament. That should be given to the tournament manager prior to the start of that tournament. And again, it's important that we do that. And also have your medical procedures and that information up to date, what you're planning on. I'm going to put a plug in that as you host these events, know where your AEDs are. We do not want to have an event where we're not sure where the AEDs are located, whether it's for a spectator, an official, or an actual athlete. So make sure you have your emergency plan in place at your section sites. So Jason, I think I can turn it back over to you to see if there's anything else I missed that you want covered.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. Just to piggyback on that topic, just make sure that all of you, your section managers and your team just are generally aware of all emergency type protocols, whether it's AED or evacuation of the building or someone who is on site that doesn't belong there, all those kinds of things. Just make sure that you have those discussions and everyone is aware of the plan and who would be responsible for calling 911 or getting the AED or whatever it happens to be. Just make sure that you're all on the same page on that. Unfortunately, we have had situations like that at our tournaments in the past, including the state tournament. And those situations ended more positively because we had a plan in place and we were ready to implement that. So just make sure that we're on top of that. And then just a couple more things to touch on from the keys in the document. The awards, the trophies and the medals should be shipped to you a few weeks in advance. Make sure that those are labeled correctly. It has the right sport, section and so forth. Just make sure that that's all accurate because we want to be able to get that fixed in time if we can. And then your region secretaries are the ones that you would work through if you need duplicate medals or those types of things. So work through that with your region secretary. Just a reminder on the official team personnel, and Mark talked about the 21 students that are participating, and you potentially could have another 21. If you did, congratulations, that's a lot of wrestlers, that's great. But what I would tell you is make sure we're on top of the number of personnel, both athletes, coaches, assistant managers and or trainers, healthcare professionals, and make sure it's limited to that amount and nothing greater than that at our section tournaments, because every year at our state tournaments, and this is not just wrestling, this is at a number of tournaments, we have to tell, the second or third student manager who's been doing it all year, sorry, you can't be down there, and those kinds of things. And we don't want to have those conversations with them if we can. If that gets addressed at the section tournament level, it's a lot more seamless as we transition into the state tournament. Ineligible students, for whatever reason, whether it's ejection, chemical or otherwise, just a reminder, they can't be in uniform down there or participate in warm-ups. They can be in the arena, but they can't be participating or in uniform with the team. And then they wouldn't be eligible to receive medals as well. So we have had that in the past. So if, for example, the team were to win the team championship and they're giving out medals, they would not be eligible to receive it until they are eligible. Then they would be eligible to receive medals at that time. Broadcasts, just a reminder that audio and video broadcast rights need to be approved by the region secretary and or the region committee. And then they need to follow the league's media guidance documents. And if you have any questions about that, reach out to your region secretary or they can communicate with Tim Layton in our office who's managing that part of the process. And then the only other piece I have And then we can take questions as I'm going to turn it over to Rick Rude. He's going to address officiating at the section tournaments, incorporating new officials in various sections, and then weigh-in, skin check procedure, and how officials may assist, and then any other questions you might have about officiating.
Okay, thanks, Jason, and good afternoon all. We talked about the requirement of head and assist at each section, and every year something will always come up, and it'll be after the fact, and someone would say this would never have happened had we had a second official there. So we want to make it mandatory that you have a head and assist at the individual tournaments, on finals, and on third place matches. And so you may need to adjust your flow of your tournament so that you can have 2 officials on each one of those mats. Also, as far as officials, we want to rotate officials through the sections at least every 3 years. So if you've been working a section, or if you are obviously operating a section and you've had the same officials there for a longer period, shoot me a note, and I'll reach out into the area, work with the association in that area, find other officials that are available, send you a list of names, and you can continue to pick your officials, but I'll give you a name of officials that are qualified for section championship matches. And it's important to all of us in the sport, and certainly to me on the official side of it and the development piece, to keep new blood coming through and to make sure that there's some younger referees with some experience that are coming into place to take care of those of us that are going to be soon going out the other direction. And that would be, I would be very happy to help you with all of that. So if you have questions on your hiring, just shoot me a note, and I'll work with my coordinators, the associations in the area, and we'll get those names to you. As far as skin checks, referees are always available to assist with that. We do prefer at the postseason time if there's a doctor involved. And what we do is we work the wrestlers through the skin checks. The referee reviews them. If there's anything that is questionable, we refer over to the doctor for their opinion. That works well, and I would offer that to you. Referees see these different skin situations all year long, and they know what to look for on the forms that are to be filled out, and can probably expedite that situation for you. And that's all I have as far as the weigh-ins. Again, weigh-ins are going to be, we documented this in Susie's document, held 1 hour before a dual meet, held 2 hours before an individual, using rules 4.2.1 and 4.2.2. That's spelled out pretty clear. You can't have an official there to do that, to manage that, and officials are available for that at each one of the sections. I believe that's all I have on the official side, and if there's any questions, don't hesitate, send me an email or chat.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, I would recommend to anyone, if you have any concerns or needs as it relates to officiating and coverage of your tournaments, that you should reach out to Rick. All of our coordinators that we have at the state level have connections and affiliations with all of our associations statewide. So they have the ability to provide names and provide support as it relates to mixing in some new officials or supporting you with rule application, rule interpretation pieces that you may need at your section tournament. And that's why Rick's number is listed as part of our materials. It's much better to, if there's a concern as it relates to rules, to reach out to Rick at the time, rather than the next day after the match is concluded and then say, hey, we had this happen and this happened. Really difficult to go back in time and make adjustments at that point. Much better to reach out to Rick, or one of the folks that are listed in the documents, get your question answered, and then we can move forward with the tournament. So that's what Rick and Mark and Brad and John, Byron, those guys, that's what they're here for, to assist you in the management of your tournaments. So If anyone else has any other questions, concerns, please bring those up at this point, so that Mark or Brad or Rick or myself can address those. Otherwise, we would conclude the call for today and look for more information to come from Susie and John as it relates to track wrestling and other documents you may need.
Jason, there is one item that I'm noticing, and sorry, I have passing time music going on in the background. But in our 21-22 wrestling rules and policies on page 4 at the very top, it talks about a 5-match limit per day. Rick, can you address that quick?
Yes, new rule from the National Federation this year allows postseason to go to 6 matches per day for postseason events. Minnesota already had that. It was for a more of a weather inclement situation, but now the National Federation has allowed 6 matches per day for total matches in section postseason.
Rick, I was wondering, are you seeing a lot of tournaments moving to a 1-day individual then with that rule change, or pretty much people staying the same? And does that help with officials if you move to 1 instead of having a 2?
Yeah, well, Peter, it's just for postseason, so we haven't
Yep.
seen any of this action happening during the regular season. But in the postseason, I do believe we can run a lot of these sections in 1 day, having a 6-match limit. Adding a 6th match per wrestler does not cause any effect on the officials. I've got these guys up to about 3 sit-ups a day now, and they're ready to go.
Except for Frosty, but
That is never going to happen.
right. No, but I was just wondering if it helps, if somebody's, can space out their days then, but regardless, are you seeing a lot of tournaments moving to 1 day off of 2? We stayed at 2. I didn't even bring it up to our coaches.
I believe that question's more for the tournament directors here. I have heard that there will be some going to 1 day, but I don't know of it yet. This is the audience here that can address that. I would hope they would. I really would hope they would. It would move things along a lot quicker.
Up in Region 8A, we made that switch this year. We went from 2 days to 1 day. That was mainly because we dropped down to 8 teams now in our Region 8A wrestling tournament. So Crookston, we're going to go with Saturday, with being flexible enough to go on that Friday. If Saturday looks like a wipeout on weather, then we'll move it up a day. But otherwise, we're going to have a 1 day shot. First time we're trying it, but I think it'll work.
Section 6A has been also 1 day for I think 2 or 3 years now. We also went to 8 teams, but we've done it with 10 too. It's a long day, but a good day. As a former wrestling coach, I know I appreciated it. And, the kids only have to make weight 1 time. Now, the downfall, like Jim mentioned, is that, we're running it on Saturday too. So there is that, you got to figure out something for weather, but it's been a really good change, especially at least in our section. There's lots of teams that only have, 7, 8, 9 wrestlers at times too. So a good change if you can make it.
And lastly, on this item, or for Rick to make sure we drive home too, and this is defaulted in track wrestling, but please remember in the individual tournament, don't mess with the wrestleback match lengths, because those are all championship matches back to 3rd place. So we should make sure that those are 2-2-2 periods, and we shouldn't be changing the default on those. Now, those 5th and 6th place matches, you can change and look at a different length of a match, but through the 3rd place championship and true seconds, all those should be true 6-minute matches.
And I just wanted to bring up, I know there are a lot, I've been getting some texts about I think some people, you know, it's rotation. You get stuck with hosting the wrestling season this year, wrestling tournament this year, whatever. Just honestly, I know it's been said, but reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. I know it seems like an awful lot of information. It seems scary, but it'll be fine. I promise you. We'll get through it. It'll be no problem.
This is Gary Revnig from Monticello. We're hosting 6 AA individual. There's 12 schools that will be competing. I was told I needed Friday night and Saturday. Is it possible for those of you with the strong wrestling background? Can you get 12 schools in one day if they have 6 matches? Or do I have to have 2 days?
John, if you're listening, I would ping this over to you. From my thoughts on the officiating side, I think that would be a long 1-day tournament. I think 2 would be best.
Gary, in 2 AA, we are running 2 days. We have 12 teams as well.
Yep, I would also recommend that. There is it's sort of remote, but there is a remote possibility that if the right combination of kids win at the right spots, I think you might end up with 7 matches.
All right, thanks, guys.
Rick, there's a question about weigh-ins before the first round for team sections in the chat. I don't know if you want to address that.
Yes, weigh-ins for dual meet are 1 hour prior to the event. So for a dual meet tournament, we use 1 hour prior to the start of the event. For individual, we use 2 hours prior to the start. We had opted to change that a year ago and decided to stay the same to be consistent with the National Federation. The reason for the 1 hour difference is sometimes in individual events, there's a change at weigh-ins, and so the coaches have to go back and do a reseed. So we need a little bit more time. So before a dual meet event, it's 1 hour prior to the start of the event, of that team's match, and 2 hours before the start of an individual tournament.
Thanks, Rick. All right, any other questions? Feel free to speak up or throw in the chat. Otherwise, as Brad and Mark and Rick and John have indicated, obviously great resources for you. Please reach out to them or to Susie and I, and we will certainly assist you however we can, so that you have a great tournament experience. Just as an aside, we are working through the section girls tournament and what that's going to look like, and we'll communicate that with the region secretaries when that's finalized, and we should have that done hopefully here in the next few days. And some of you may pick that up, but as another tournament to manage, but we're looking forward to having that as part of the fold this year. So if there aren't any other questions, have a great day. We'll share this recording with you. And again, reach out with any questions that you may have.